Good to talk to you too, Jordy. How's everything going?
Doing good, man. Let's start here on signing day. Where are you starting here? What's kind of your plan of attack? How do you attack these days?
Yeah, I try to facilitate as much caffeine in my body as possible. Try to eliminate any social interactions as possible. Meals are necessary, but they're not planned. Bathroom habits, they have to be adjusted. But
Right.
I would say by the dinner time, this thing really does slow down. We will have some trickle effect into Thursday and Friday, but for me personally, this is like 40% of the pot, and then we still have a lot of big dominoes that are going to last into All-American season and then into February. So this is just a little bit of an appetizer for the full signing day for me.
What about these AllStar games that are happening, Speaks? What's this week been like? Kind of monitoring those.
Yeah, it's a rush because I'm selfish and I'm thinking about All-American games and state championships and the early signing period, and coaches are dealing with transfers and early signing, and then trying to get guys to maybe sign early or delay their signing into February. On top of that, you have coaching changes all across the country. I imagine that we're still going to see some more coaching changes after the holiday seasons come through. It's a lot going on right now, but it's absolutely fun. It's a lot of fun. This is why you get into a business like this. You get to do a lot of great evaluations. You get all the scoop. You get nonstop interesting notes buzzing on your phone as we're on this conversation right now. I can hear my phone going off. That means something is going on in the world. It's a good time to follow recruiting.
Do you need to check it?
No, I wouldn't do that to you, Jordy.
Well, definitely, break some news for us.
Right.
Yeah.
If it is breaking, let us know. Sammy, what about the transfer portal? How are you monitoring this and the recruitment of that? Because it seems like that's picking up as well.
Yeah, I imagine that the NCAA is going to have to institute some sort of legislation or some sort of schedule for not people like me who do this for a living, but these coaches that are hosting official visits and between high school kids and transfer kids, and they have a deadline on their decisions. I think I've said this to you before because now it's becoming a habit, but building a championship level college football program is essentially like building an NFL roster at this point. And you can comp the draft and free agency to the transfer portal window and high school recruiting, and that's what's going on right now, Jordy. If you want to have a chance to be where Alabama and Texas and Washington are going, and in Georgia, you want to be in the mix, you better be recruiting to the high school level. You better be going through the transfer portal and finding players that are ready to go right now, because as much as we love National Signing Day, being ready to contribute in the SEC or the Power 5 is not easy to do right out of high school. In fact, it's extremely difficult and rare. So you see the way that these rosters are being built right now, fast, quick, and expensive. And that's the wave of the future. It's a lot that goes into it right now.
The first official letter of intent faxed over to LSU this morning comes from North Louisiana, and that is Gabe Relaford. He is in. Sam, tell me about his recruitment. It was wild, right? I mean, LSU was his dream school. They were late to offer. He was committed to A&M. He was a little annoyed that LSU was late to the party, and then ultimately Frank Wilson and the crew do the work to get him flipped to Baton Rouge. What did you make of this recruitment, and what does LSU get in Relaford?
We've seen this before, especially in the state of Louisiana. The timing of offers, it always kind of resonates with some kids. Gabe was the leading sack artist in Louisiana the last 2 seasons. He did not get an offer after his junior season. And in fact, Elijah Robinson came in town in the spring, was up in Shreveport, extended an offer, got him to camp, and very easy for Gabe. He fell in love with Elijah Robinson, one of the best defensive line coaches in the country out of A&M at the time. Now he's at Syracuse. And he felt like he was overlooked because LSU was landing commitments and sending offers out to Ahmad Bro from Ruston and Dominic McKinley from Acadiana. They were evaluating Melvin Hills and LCA, and he felt like he was overlooked. Who could blame him? We've seen this before. Not to mention that LSU's defensive line coach went to the Denver Broncos, and then their replacement was put on leave with a medical illness. And it's if you're a defensive lineman and you're out to get sacks for a living, and LSU doesn't have a defensive line coach, it's hard to take them seriously when Elijah Robinson is recruiting you for A&M.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to credit. I know he's going to kill me, but you got to credit the Godfather, Frank.
Oh yeah.
LSU's associate head coach. I'm not even going to call him his running backs coach anymore. He's the associate head coach because he handles all these positions at this point. Frank, in particular, went into overdrive with Relaford. He's been up to North Louisiana more. He did a very staunch evaluation of the defensive linemen in the state of Louisiana. All results showed Gabe. Obviously, the numbers speak for themselves. The coaching change in A&M helped a good deal, but LSU got him on campus 3 times in 4 months after offering. That's no coincidence. They went all in on Gabe, and he's probably the face of this class now from a defensive perspective.
What about the other defensive lineman in the state with Dominic McKinley? He's pledged to A&M, but Brian Kelly and the Godfather, Frank Wilson, made in-home visits over the last 2 weeks, and it seems like they have an open ear to LSU now. What do you read into this?
Yeah, absolutely. Angie McKinley, Dominic's mother, told us a week ago that he is not going to sign in today or this week. He's going to extend his recruitment into February. Texas, Oklahoma, Syracuse, Tennessee, LSU have all went in home with Dominic McKinley in the past couple of weeks after Acadiana fell short in the state championship. Right now, he already has his official visit to LSU set up for January. I know that Texas and Steve Sarkisian plan to go in home with him next month. Oklahoma has continued to kick the tires, but if there's a team that's really pushing A&M right now, it has to be the In-State Tigers.
Wow.
They have a lot of momentum in this recruitment for the first time with Dominic McKinley. And as this early signing period in December comes and goes, I got a hard time believing that Dominic McKinley is going to end up playing his college football in College Station.
You mentioned the headliner and one of the faces of the class being Relaford. One of the standout players here that they got late is Weston Davis, who's in this offensive line class in this cycle, along with Ethan Callaway and a couple other prospects. Sam, can you put to perspective what Brad Davis has done to the offensive line, and then what do they get in a guy like Davis, who seems like he is just a bona fide top 10 prospect at his position?
Yeah, when I was on the LSU beat, I think every single year when it came to recruiting, all I heard was, where are the offensive tackles? Where are the offensive linemen? I remember Coach O sitting there after a Mississippi State loss complaining about the trenches. This has been a theme in Baton Rouge for, can't find offensive linemen. Well, Brad Davis fixed that problem, and now it's becoming this 2024 class. I mean, you can't look past this. This is Weston Davis is a top 10 player, a 5-star offensive tackle. He's a phenomenal basketball player. You want to talk about length and traits that are going to translate to the first round of the NFL draft. The only thing that's missing with Weston Davis is the coaching, coming from Beast, Texas, where they'll teach you how to get right in the weight room and how to put people on their backsides. But I think in terms of development, Brad Davis will be huge for Weston Davis, and to come in behind Will Campbell and Lance Hurd in a couple of years and take his time to develop to be the anchor of that offensive line. Same goes for Ethan Callaway. The dude is one of those first guys off the bus that you can't miss. I really love what LSU's done with their interior spots, getting guys like Joseph Cryer and Kyrie Lee. And they're kicking the tires on Cohen Eccles out of Katy, an All-American center. You joke around, LSU and the way they recruit offensive linemen. They could have a chance to sign arguably the best group of offensive linemen in the country if they can beat out Auburn and A&M. For Cohen Eccles, his decision is probably in, though it won't go public until Friday. But that they have a chance to sign 6 offensive linemen, 6 of the best offensive linemen, including the guy you said, Weston Davis, and possibly Cohen Eccles, an All-American center.
Wow. Terry Bussey is a name that keeps popping up around here. He's an uncommitted, or he's committed to Texas A&M, but a prospect that seems open and not signing here in the early period. Where does he stand, and who's making a push on Bussey that's going to be in the mix here in February?
Yeah, Terry has said that he might be committed to A&M, but he is evaluating all of his options equally right now. You got to remember that the coaches that recruited him at A&M, Jimbo Fisher and TJ Rushing, one's already gone and one might be on their way out. So he's trying to, take this all in. He's trying to give Mike Elko and Ishmael Artiste, the new DB coach, a shot. He's also obviously very high on Kerry Cooks, LSU safeties coach. Has kept an open line of communication with Alabama, which was one of his finalists, and USC and Lincoln Riley are trying to get in the mix with the 5-star athlete from East Texas. I expect Bussy to be on campus at College Station, be on campus in Baton Rouge again in January. Kerry Cooks was at his state championship game last week. LSU, there's a lot of buzz about Terry Bussy at LSU. He's been there 3 times this fall. He took his official visit right before, and LSU was giving A&M a run before he committed to the Aggies. He's from East Texas. A lot of his family is LSU fans. So I think LSU could make it interesting with Terry Bussy down the stretch. He's going to announce in February.
Sam, we saw a big story earlier this week nationally pop with Dylan Rayola, the quarterback out of Georgia, who was pledged to Georgia, flip his commitment to Nebraska, and just an hour ago has sent his letter of intent in to the Cornhuskers. What have you made of quarterback recruiting now here that NIL is in play and some of these big time prospects are flipping late in the game? What has quarterback recruiting become?
Well, it's expensive. I mean, I'm not here to talk about dollar figures or anything because it's market value. But I'll tell you this: quarterback is the most important position on the field. And when it comes to recruiting, we're talking about cornerbacks and offensive linemen. But the thing about, you usually sign one quarterback, and they don't grow on trees, especially when we talk about things when evaluating quarterbacks like the Elite 11 and the Elite 11 maybe in the whole country. So a player like Dylan Rayola, he's got more than 11 options at the end of the day. We're talking about a 5-star kid with an NFL pedigree and a live arm that you or me would trade anything in to have, and it's a little bit surprising to understand that at one point he was committed to Ryan Day and Ohio State, and they were building a class around this kid. Then he was committed to the 2-time defending national champions, and his family moved from Texas to Arizona all the way out to Beaufort, Georgia, to be closer to Athens. And then within 2 weeks of signing day, he decides to get back on the road, take an official visit to Nebraska. Obviously, we know he has family ties to Nebraska, and we know that Nebraska has a very widespread NIL collective. But, we talked about this earlier, the transfer portal attached to NIL, it's a lot like free agency in the NFL. It's a free agency for college football. And when you hear about dollars and figures and what the transfer market is demanding, if you're Dylan Rayola, the number 1 quarterback in the country, and you got this NFL pedigree and all these options and coaches recruiting you, why wouldn't you, change your mind potentially if that's what, the market says?
Yeah. Down the road, Bryce Underwood is set to announce on January 6th. He's the number 1 prospect next season. Sammy, it seems like LSU's been trending for him for a while. What have you made of his recruitment, and what do you think happens after the first of the year?
Well, he's coming off a visit to Alabama. He's also been to Michigan more than any other school in his recruitment. I think the way that this is set up, LSU just lands a grad transfer in A.J. Swan, who was fantastic coming out of I think he's from the Atlanta area, coming out of high school. I was a big fan of his. Listen, Joe Sloan has put them in a fantastic spot going into January 6th. But much like Dylan Rayola, I mean, it would be great for LSU potentially to the way that their 2025 class is set up between the guys they have committed like Keelan Moses and DeCorian Moore. They're expecting a big splash from Harlem Berry potentially in the next couple of weeks, and then to add Bryce Underwood, like I said, the most important position on the field. You got to give credit to Joe Sloan, but again, we're talking about Dylan Rayola flipping 2 different times and then signing with Nebraska today. It's one thing to get a commitment in January from a kid from Michigan. It'll be a whole different story to hold on over the ensuing 10, 11 months when schools like Ohio State and Michigan and Georgia and schools that are equipped NIL-wise to hold off. And so recruiting will never stop. That's why I said you got to schedule these bathroom breaks during the early signing period. Recruiting doesn't stop, and that includes when you get a commitment in January, you got to hold on until December.
Sammy, I know today's busy. We appreciate the time. LSU seems pretty status quo today. Not like a lot of exciting stuff is going to happen other than the guys that are committed are just going to send their letters of intent in. Are you expecting any drama anywhere today?
Oh, I'm expecting some drama. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's National Signing Day, Jordy. I mean,
right.
I just put in a pick on our recruiting prediction machine for a Texas commit to flip to Alabama. The Tide is certainly looking for some pieces late. Nick Saban doesn't stop recruiting. Everyone who's listening to this show knows that. So there's a couple of flips that are currently in the works. They got a lot of 5 stars, like I said, that have been committed for several months. And now that it's time to put the pen to paper, things are getting a little bit murky. And if you're an LSU fan, tie into On3, tie into Bengal Tiger, because this Cohen Eccles recruitment is a little bit interesting. He's an All-American center. He was committed to A&M since the summer. Auburn, A&M, and LSU are battling for him late. And like I said, if he winds up at LSU, if he winds up at Auburn, if he winds up at A&M, this is a difference maker. People in the college ranks think this guy can go in and play on Saturdays right now in the middle of your offensive line. We've seen it on Saturdays and Sundays. Bad snaps, bad offensive line protection calls, that can do you in. So an elite center, and we're talking about Weston Davis, Ethan Callaway, Kyrie Lee, Joseph Cryer. This could be a really lanyard for LSU's offensive line class, and Brad Davis potentially. And he's already signed, but he's going to announce on Friday. And I think LSU has been the team to watch down the stretch.
Man, that would be 3 straight classes of just solid offensive line recruiting, man, that Brad Davis has brought in his first 3 cycles. That would be amazing. Sammy, good luck today. Appreciate scratching out a couple of minutes for us. Have a great holiday, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. See you, Jordy. Thanks for having me.
Always. There he is, Sam Spiegelman, checking in this morning. Remember, he's a part of On3's coverage. He's part of those guys over there. Also, the Bengal Tiger here locally, if you want to keep up. Shay, Billy, and the crew.